Hello, my name is Joshua Zeiber, editor of the Video File Home Theater blog. Welcome to Film at 11, the podcast in which I, a grown-up movie critic, convince my son to watch a famous movie he's never seen before and review it from his 11-year-old perspective. This is my son Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. My 11-year-old son this week is named Thomas. Here's how the podcast works. In each episode, I choose a movie using my discretion as a parent that my son hasn't seen before. He won't know what it is in advance, but he'll try to go into the viewing with an open mind. Afterward, we'll discuss what he thought about it and whether he'd recommend it to friends his age. Fair? Okay. In a previous episode, I may have joked that Thomas only likes movies with the word Transformers in the title, but that's not necessarily true. He also likes some movies, some superhero movies, for example.
Yeah.
Especially those from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is your favorite superhero?
Iron Man.
Iron Man. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do you like about Iron Man?
He's cool.
He's cool. Well, that's some in-depth film analysis right there. We're not watching an Iron Man movie this week. Bummer. And we're not watching a Marvel movie either. He's seen enough of those. Instead, we are going to watch the original, the classic
Something.
Superman, the movie. The movie that made people care about superhero movies in the first place. So, Thomas, have you ever watched Superman, the movie, before? No. You know who Superman is, of course. Okay.
The most generic superhero ever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, because I know I've overheard you talking to your friends about this, and you saying you think Superman is the most boring superhero. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel that way?
Because he's super generic. His name is literally Superman.
Well, that means he's super.
Yeah, but they couldn't have made anything better.
Okay, we're going to see how you feel after you've actually watched the movie, because you've ever watched any movie with Superman in it before? What have you watched that had Superman in it? Oh, you haven't seen anything.
I've played a video game that had Lego Superman.
Lego Superman. I guess he was in the Lego movie too.
Mm-hmm.
That's your whole exposure to Superman is the Lego movie and Lego video games.
Wow.
We're going to see how you feel about this one. So, going into this, are you excited to watch this movie or do you just expect it to be lame and boring?
I've heard good things about the movie, but I'll try to keep an open mind.
It sounds like you're hedging a little bit there. You're not entirely sure. All right, we're gonna hope for the best on this one. So we're gonna start the movie now because it's time for some truth, justice, and the American way. Up and away. We are back from watching Superman the movie. This was Thomas's first time watching Superman the movie. And so I'm going to ask you right up front what your rating is on this movie. On our scale of a W to an L, where would you go with this one? Because I'm very interested to know whether you liked this or not.
I would give it a W because it was a good movie.
Okay. But you sound a little hesitant about that.
Yeah, because I thought the flying looked a little goofy.
Okay. Well, all right. I asked you when we started to write down 3 observations, and you wrote down one at the very beginning and then didn't take any more notes.
Yeah.
But then you wrote down a couple things at the end after it was over. So can you tell me what your 3 observations were?
My 3 observations were, it was very loud at the beginning.
Okay. That was your observation. It was loud.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What else?
And that Lex wasn't bald.
Lex wasn't bald, right? Well,
like
I mean, it turns out he was at the end, but
most of the movie he wasn't bald.
Right. Okay. Did that annoy you?
A little, yeah.
You thought Lex Luthor should be bald?
Yeah.
You, who have no real experience with any Superman media, somehow knew that he was supposed to be bald and were annoyed by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know he's a baldy.
Okay.
He is secretly and truly a baldy.
All right. And what is your 3rd observation?
When Krypton was blowing up and everyone knew it was blowing up, why didn't the parents leave?
Okay. All right. These are good observations. Why don't we start with with the last one there about why they didn't leave? Because uh, Superman's father knew, and his wife knew that Krypton was in danger and was probably going to explode, but nobody believed them. They knew that there was problems happening on the planet, but they didn't believe it was as dangerous as as he predicted. And and they didn't want to cause a panic among the people, so they ordered him not to say anything. And that is why he wasn't allowed to say anything. But you'll note, we noted when we were watching the movie that he specifically said that neither I nor my wife will leave the planet, because then that would make people concerned. But he didn't say anything about his son. So that's how he got his son out. Now, yes, so I can understand why that's a complicated thing to understand at 11. I will just say it mirrors real world current events going on at the moment. We won't get too much into that, but yeah, it was that there was denial about how serious it was. People didn't the other leaders of the planet didn't want to believe it was as dangerous as it was, and they thought they could just ignore it and it would go away, and it didn't happen that way. And that's not the proper way to deal with it. All right.
But when the world was about to explode, why didn't they leave then?
It was a little late at that point because their city was falling apart. They didn't prepare in advance for it. They didn't build spaceships or anything, so they were basically done for at that point. Right. So, Thomas, when this movie was released, which was way back in 1978. I don't know if you can even fathom how long ago that was. It was promoted with the tagline, "You will believe a man can fly." So, did you believe a man can fly? No. Okay.
Nope.
This was made. I will say this was the first of the sort of modern superhero movies. Before this, the way superheroes had been treated on screen, well, mostly was on television, very little in the movies, and was very cheap and low budget and looked crappy. This was the first big budget superhero movie, and it was a big hit at the time. And while you may look at it today from your modern perspective, being used to a lot of big blockbuster movies with lots of CGI special effects, it didn't have any computer effects in this movie. And so while some of those effects may look dated now, at the time they were very impressive. Did you? But I know you said right up front that you thought that his flying didn't look very realistic. Did you find that cheesy? Is that where you're going with this? What else did you not think was done very well, or did you just think was too cheesy for your taste as an 11-year-old?
I think it was a little too cheesy.
Which parts?
The parts when he was flying around. And it was really cheesy.
Just the flying, though?
Yeah,
Nothing
mostly
else?
just the flying.
Right. As I'll say, I made note that there's also a lot of effects in this movie that are very clearly done with miniatures and models.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, on Krypton, a lot of that very much looked like models. And at the big climax of the movie, when there's the earthquake and the flood.
Yeah, I noticed
the little town that was about to get flooded. That was very clearly miniatures. It didn't look too convincing.
I really noticed that Krypton was a model.
Okay. What else about this movie did you not like? Was there anything else, or was that the only thing that was bothering you?
That was mostly it that was bothering me.
How was the pacing of the movie for you?
It was a little fast.
It was fast?
I thought it was a little fast.
How so?
Well, I mean, it was really, at the climax, it was really just, switching around from part to part, and I thought it was kind of, fast. But actually, in the beginning, I thought it was a little slow.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if the movie was too slow for you overall, because this does not have the pace of a modern superhero or action movie, where they are There's a lot more going on. There's usually, in most modern movies, there's a lot more action than this one had. This had relatively little action, considering its very long length as well. It's a 2.5 hour long movie and didn't have a ton of action scenes in it. So were you bored during the scenes between those, or were you okay with that? Because there was a lot of storytelling going on in those parts.
I was a little bored.
Which, like, was there anything in particular that you found boring?
The part where they were flying around with the girl.
Where Clark was showing Lois how to fly?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like the most famous scene in the movie, and you thought it was boring.
I thought it was a little boring.
I can get that. All right. Did you understand the plot as far as Lex Luthor's plan? I know I had to explain a little bit of that to you while we were watching. Did it ultimately make sense to you what he was trying to do?
Kinda. Yeah.
Okay. And why don't you explain what you understand of that to me?
Well, he was trying to blow up the west coast with nuclear missiles.
Mm-hmm.
And he got control of 2 missiles and sent them in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to, after he blew up the west coast with all the land that he just bought, he was going to make a new west coast that he was in charge of.
Right, because he had bought up all that property in the middle of the country there that was going to suddenly become the coast, and it was going to become very valuable. Does this seem like a good plan?
No.
No, it doesn't. In addition to the fact that he's going to kill millions of people, which he didn't seem concerned about at all. He didn't care. This movie requires a lot of comic book logic, where things make sense only in terms of the plot of the movie needs them to make sense, but they probably wouldn't make sense in the real world. Lex's plan in particular, it isn't as simple as that. It wouldn't work in the way that he thinks it is. It's all very silly. That he thinks he's just going to drop a missile and California's going to fall into the ocean. So that was pretty silly. The movie also has some stuff, especially at the end, where it just isn't the way that earthquakes work. Where like Superman flew into the fault and then just held up some rocks and suddenly the earthquake reverses itself and all the land comes back together. That's not the way earthquakes work.
Yeah, I think that's comic book logic.
Yeah, there's a lot of comic book logic. And how did you feel about the ending of the movie? How Superman saved Lois? Because that's big time comic book logic.
Yeah, I found that as really big comic book logic, and I'm like, what?
So how did you interpret that scene? What do you think Superman did there? Because there's 2 possible interpretations of that.
He flew around the world so fast.
That what happened?
That he turned back time.
Okay. Because there's 2 possible ways to look at that. Either that he turned back time, where he made everything reverse itself, which, again, that's not how time works. Or he flew so fast that he went back in time and was able to get to her faster. But the problem with the second explanation is that when he landed there, like, Lois's car didn't fall into an earthquake again. That earthquake didn't hit her at all. So it kind of seems like he just turned the earth around and it suddenly everything undid itself, which, that's some big time comic book logic. Okay. Couple things here. One, how'd you feel about his costume?
It looked kind of goofy.
It was a little goofy.
Comic book.
Yeah, it was. But I think in modern comic book movies, they make an attempt to make the costumes, if not realistic, they try to make them look a little less silly.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work necessarily, and sometimes it looks dumber for being like, I am thinking particularly of X-Men, the first X-Men movie, which I watched with you, where they were all just wearing black leather, which that was kind of ridiculous in itself. And eventually, in later X-Men movies, they had them just wear their superhero costumes. But in this one, his costume with the bright red, white, and blue, and the red boots and everything, is that too goofy for you?
It was a little goofy.
It was a little goofy, but you went with it. Okay. as we talked about, the pacing of this movie was probably a little slow for you. I noted that it took 48 minutes to even get to Metropolis before the movie sank to Metropolis, and it was a full hour before the first really big action scene, which is when Superman rescues Lois from the helicopter crash. Was that bothersome? Did you find the opening parts of the movie where he's growing up in Smallville and all that? Did you find that interesting? Were you not interested in that stuff?
I found that it went a little too slowly.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right. I don't mean to lead you into feeling that way. I was just curious how, from your 11-year-old perspective, having watched a lot of modern action movies, how that played for you. All right. So it was a little slow for you. Okay. All right. Did you have any other observations that you wanted to note here?
Why did they show his pee-pee?
As a little baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, that slipped in there. I guess they just felt that was, when it's a little baby like that, it wasn't too, I don't know. That's a weird thing. I don't think that would fly in a more newer movie, but yes, that was an interesting choice. All right. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is what were your thoughts on the music of the movie?
I thought it was very loud, and it kind of felt like they just kept blasting the same theme over and over again.
Okay, that's interesting. Did this music feel similar to you to something else you may have watched?
No.
Really? It didn't sort of feel, I don't know, a little bit like the Star Wars music? You didn't pick up on that at all?
No.
Okay. Well, it is in fact the same composer as who did Star Wars. His name is John Williams, and he made Star Wars and this movie back to back, and there's a fair amount of similarity in their two scores. I think if you were to watch it again, you would probably notice that. Would you watch this movie again?
Maybe.
Maybe. Would you recommend this movie to your friends, or do you think they would not be into it?
I don't think they would be into it.
Okay. Any of them?
Mm-mm.
Okay, interesting.
Well, maybe Arthur, but...
All right. Do you think this was a bad choice for me to pick for you? Okay. So now it feels like you're switching from a W to an L. Is that fair? Okay. All right. But you did say at the beginning that you thought it was a good movie. It just wasn't entirely your taste in movies. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you still feel like that, or do you still feel like no? You're at the point now where you just don't like the movie.
I think it would be good for someone else, not me, or maybe when I'm older.
Okay, I think that's fair. I don't think you should give up on it entirely, but yeah, I mean, I can get how this is a movie that was made in a different generation and maybe isn't for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean you wouldn't have any interest in watching the sequels to this movie or any remakes and reboots and all those sort of things? Would you watch a different Superman movie?
Mm-hmm.
You would.
I would probably watch a newer one.
You would watch a newer one. Because I know that as we're recording this, you've probably seen the trailer for the new upcoming Superman movie that's out. Did you think that looked good?
I saw it had Doggo. So yes.
Yeah, Crypto, the super dog, yes. So that's your whole interest in it, that it has a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This one had a cat. He rescued a cat from a tree.
Yeah, but he doesn't own the cat. He has Doggo.
Crypto. Okay. Okay. So as we close out here, I'm gonna ask one more time. What is as we've been talking it through and you've been thinking about it, what is your final verdict here? W or L?
A W for another person.
That's a kind of a wish-washy answer there, Thomas. Okay. A borderline W then.
Yeah.
Maybe. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. All right. I'll give you that. Okay. All right. Do you want to wrap up with anything right now?
No.
No, nothing. Okay. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for Superman the movie here. If you liked this content, please like, share, and subscribe. We really need all the help you can get us to share this around and let other people see it, because we're having fun doing this, and we hope that you had fun watching it. For a grown-up take on movies, please visit videophileblog.com. And I think we're done.
Yeah.
Bye.
Like, share, subscribe.
All right. Bye. All right, go.
Hello, my name is Joshua Zyber, and I'm your editor at The Video Fire, a home theater blog.
The Video Fire?
Yeah, it's fire.
You know I'm recording this, right?
Yeah.
You want to try again?
No. I'm escaping, guys. Yeah.